a biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
On a Wednesday at this time, you know it is our long-held tradition to check in on those headlines as they're coming out of Israel and more broadly across the Middle East. But with so much activity that's going on in the Middle East, these segments become very, very important. And Mandy Worby back with us for another update today. Hey, Mandy.
Hi, Neil. It's good to be with you.
Mandy, let's start with the coup in Syria. And Israel has established a safe buffer zone because of all the unknowns that come along with this new leadership in Syria.
Yeah, well, all the fronts, they're fighting on 7 fronts, and they were getting attacks from within Syria, from Hezbollah and Iran in there. And then, of course, as you said, the coup, and then it's all these unknowns. What does that mean for Israel? So Israel immediately sent the IDF up to the Golan and established a buffer zone. I believe it's about a 20-kilometre buffer zone. And what they did was they started clearing out a whole lot of military installations that could possibly pose a threat with the new leadership. There were 4 brigade combat teams, including infantry, commando, engineer, armour, reconnaissance, paratroopers, as I said, commando brigades. They're all performing defensive missions, neutralising threats, and their goal is to safeguard the civilians in northern Israel and on the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights, just so everybody knows, it's not a disputed territory. Not in real terms, it has always been a part of Israeli territory going all the way back to their earliest ancient times. It's always been a part of Israel.
And they've been working hard, not just militarily, but also trying to work with community leaders in that buffer zone area that extends into Syria.
Yes, they have. The IDF have been going in and having meetings with various different Syrian leaders in different towns and communities, reassuring them that the Israelis are not there to take over their communities and govern them or oppress them. They will protect them. But you see what was happening straight away, Israel was coming under fire from rebels right on the border, and so were those communities on the border in Syria. So Israel is there to keep people safe and to prevent any kind of military or fighting action coming against those locals on the border in Syria and within her own territory, Israel's own territory.
And Israel has taken the opportunity, with all of the upheaval that's gone on with the displacement of Assad, to try and neutralise some of the threats that would be coming against them under a new leadership with an Islamic flavour.
Because the new leaders, even in their own videos and, that they were putting out of themselves taking ground, were declaring that they were on their way to liberate Jerusalem, and they were praying for Hamas victory over Israel. Again, that's why Israel immediately sent her forces up there. And they did. They took out hundreds of sites, military targets. I believe it was, I don't want to say this wrong, it was either 250 or 350 strikes. They targeted weapons depots and stores, manufacturing capabilities for weapons. I believe they destroyed a facility used to manufacture chemical and biological weapons. The rebels actually found and took over this massive site that I believe Bashar al-Assad's brother was using to manufacture, millions and millions and millions of these particular pills that they actually give to terrorists to go and commit their terror attacks. Millions of these pills. I can't remember, Captagon or something it was called. Oh, it was just unbelievable. Israel has determined that nothing military is going to fall into the hands of terrorists and terror groups that can then be used against Israel.
One of the notable strikes apparently caused a huge explosion at a munitions depot.
Yes. The target itself was near the city of Tartus on the coast, and yes, it was an ammunition depot. The bomb that Israel used was big, no doubt about it. It was really big, but the exploding ammunition made the detonation so big from a distance it looked like a mushroom cloud. It was not nuclear, just want to put that out there. But it was so big that the blast was actually detected in Iznik in Turkey, 820 k's away, and apparently was registering 3.0 magnitude as if it was an earthquake. And the signal took 12 minutes to travel in the lower ionosphere, which is about twice as fast as what earthquake signals travel. So this thing was monumentally big.
Big picture things, Mandy. The thought that we've aired already on a 2020 conversation last week, the thought that the fingerprints of the Turks are all over what's going on in Syria. And there's this thought that President Erdogan, the Turkish president, wants to rebuild an Ottoman Empire. Any thoughts here from you?
There is no secret at all that he would like to have the Ottoman Empire 2.0. He would like to be the caliph, to sit on the king's seat and lead the Muslim nation, which it would be to unite the Muslims around the world as a Muslim nation in that empire. That's what he wants to do. He's always wanted to do it, and he backed the rebels. And so now the rebels are beholden to him, and the concern amongst the US is that Turkey will now feel unhindered in wanting to attack the Kurds. And they have been attacking the Kurds for decades now, trying to kill them off. The area where the Kurds have always lived does not belong to Turkey. It is actually part of ancient Kurdish land. The Kurds would like it back. Turkey has banned any political party of the Kurds. And as I said, they've consistently attacked the Kurds. Saudi Arabia does not want Turkey in Syria. Syria, with Turkey in there, would destabilise the entire region. Remember, in Islam, Saudi Arabia is the heart of Islam, with Mecca and Medina the most holy places for Islam. Turkey wants to usurp that position, and this has the whole of the Middle East upset. They don't want Turkey in there. So we'll see what happens there. And it would also put Turkey right on the border with Israel. It would make Turkey a completely like a border state with Israel, which is not what Israel wants.
And challenging times, the Christians across that Syrian area are all under pressure.
Yes,
We've
they are.
talked about that before. Let's move on to some other really important things, though. The the Court of Justice and the International Criminal Courts, they've had all sorts of almost a court-like vendetta against Israel. What are the developments there?
Okay, well, Israel has filed 2 appeals against the ICC, claiming that the ICC's made procedural deficiencies and errors by the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan, who has a history of being a rabid anti-Semite. And the first appeal addresses Israel's contention that Khan should have provided new information on his investigation into these allegations in the war in Gaza that was instigated by Hamas, not by Israel. But they're using information from 2021. It's got nothing to do with this particular situation right now. And so they're saying you can't use information from a different time. You've got to use current information. So that's the first appeal. The second is that the ICC lacks jurisdiction over Israel. Israel is not a member of the ICC, and the ICC's own rules say you can't go gunning for somebody who's not a member. And the case against Israel in the ICJ, moving on to the ICJ now, Ireland has jumped in on that with South Africa. But here's the problem. They're claiming that Israel is guilty of committing genocide. But there's no evidence that Israel is committing genocide. So Ireland, get this, Ireland has said that they want the court to broaden the definition of genocide. They said they're concerned that a narrow interpretation of what constitutes genocide leads to a culture of impunity in which the protection of civilians is minimised. So genocide, which means the extermination of a whole people, that's what genocide means. They say, no, that's too narrow. We want it to be that people will actually suffer in the case of war. Well, if that's the case, any conflict around the world would mean every nation involved in a conflict, whether they started it or are defending themselves, is now guilty of genocide. You don't change the laws and broaden the definition so you can target your enemies. That's not how, justice works. So that's what Ireland has done. Israel is so angry with Ireland for doing this that they have actually, they're closing their embassy in Ireland.
Let's turn some attention to the conflict with Hezbollah in Lebanon. As I understand it, Mandy, there's a ceasefire agreement, but that's not necessarily being upheld by Hezbollah.
No, from day one, Hezbollah has been breaking the agreement. They're breaking all the rules. Part of the rules is that they're not allowed within a certain distance of Israel's border. They're not allowed there. They've been going in all the time trying to re-establish themselves there. Israel is hitting them back, and they will continue to do so because according to the agreement, if Hezbollah breaks the rules, Israel can retaliate, and she is. But Israel is continuing to clear that area out. They're continuing to find rocket launchers, anti-tank missiles, mortar shells. Look, Hezbollah has dug themselves in so deep there, it's going to take a long time to get rid of it. But, Hamas is doing the same thing. Hamas is continuing to embed themselves in civilian populations. They always have. That's their MO. And so in just the same way Hezbollah has built itself into all these communities in Lebanon, we already know Hamas is doing the same thing. And so when they fire rockets, I've had my alarms going off. There's still rockets coming out of Gaza. So Israel then goes in, sends warnings to all the civilians, you need to move out of this area. And so what does Hamas do? They pick up and they move with the population because they dress like civilians and they talk like civilians and they walk with the civilians. And it's why it's taking so long to uproot Hamas from Gaza.
And then, of course, you've got ongoing issues with the Houthis in Yemen.
Yep.
But let's go to what might be happening internationally. And I know there's been a bit of sabre rattling coming from Donald Trump saying he wants this thing to be resolved before he takes the presidency on the 20th of January. He's been pretty tough in some words that he's spoken.
Well, he has, but his primary thing is that he wants it wrapped up, that's true, but he said it has to be in Israel's favour. Israel was the victim in all of this. She's the one being targeted by everybody. What Donald Trump really did was he gave Hamas a warning. And basically said, if you do not have all of the hostages released by the time I get back into the White House, I am going to unleash hell on you. Basically, he said it's going to be a big response. So there is a conversation at the moment about about a hostage deal. But the problem with this, now, they have agreed that, yes, okay, so the IDF are going to stay in Gaza. They've kind of relented on that a little bit because Israel said, we're not going anywhere. We are making sure that this is a safe place. We're not giving up Rafah or the Philadelphia corridor along the Gazan border with Egypt. We're not allowing you to dig tunnels under there to smuggle in weapons and warfare. But when it comes to the issue of getting the hostages back, what Hamas always does is they demand terrorists be released from Israeli prisons. Now, the last time that happened in a big way was in 2011 when one IDF soldier, Gilad Shalit, was held hostage. To get him back, Israel released 1,027 terrorists from prison to get one soldier back. One of those, many of them went on to commit more terror attacks, but one of them was Yahya Sinwar, who masterminded October 7 that resulted in thousands of Israelis murdered and brutalised and raped and their towns devastated, and put Israel into an existential war that now is operating to this day on 7 fronts. Israel has to be very careful when it comes to a negotiation, when it comes to a hostage deal, because it's like saying, well, we want these hostages back, but whose children in the future are going to be the next ones to be taken hostage and murdered and brutalised? It's a very tough situation for Israel.
And we might be discouraged by the thought that whatever happens, there's always going to be some level of ongoing conflict.
Yes,
because, as you say, it always happens even generationally, these things continue to compound.
It's the ideology that drives these people. It's like you can't rationalise, you can't communicate, you can't come to an agreement because of an irrational, radicalised ideology that drives them, that says no matter what, even if I have to go scorched earth and take everybody else out, I have to kill Jews. And it's what drives them. I say it all the time, how do you play chicken with somebody who wants to die?
And we might take that little mandate that we understand from the scriptures. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, because this is a major issue not easily resolved. We might hope there's some breakthroughs in 2025. Mandy, it's been just fabulous getting these updates with you all through the year. No doubt we'll be continuing on with these in 2025, but thank you very much for a wonderful year doing these updates all about Israel and more broadly across the Middle East. Happiest Christmas to you and
to you.
And the Lord's blessing on you. We'll catch you again soon.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.